Hey my friends, I can't believe I never played with this knife. This is the Cold Steel GI Tanto. And again, this really says a lot about the best side of Cold Steel, making well-made stuff out of economical materials and putting them in the hands of the user for a really small amount of money. This is a $50 Australian knife and a brand named knife of any kind in Australia for 50 bucks, let alone one of this size, is a bit of a win already. So what you're getting here is 1055 steel with cold steel kind of black powder coat they put on it, a Grivex handle, a double crossguard here, a Securex sheath which is on the hip still, which I'll talk about in a second, in a pretty exaggerated American Tanto style blade, very kind of jagged, looks kind of Buster Swordish a little tiny bit. I think it's a very cool looking knife. It's kind of got that junkyard aesthetic, especially once you start getting some crap on it from using it. I'm just going to take it out, show you what you can use it for, and just have a nice light-hearted conversation about the GI Tanto in this video. Look, I recommend it straight away. It's $50. It's a good amount of fun, and you can do a lot of playing around with it. So let's just get into some fun use footage and some comparison shots. Now, in my mind, there's only one tougher test than being used as a throwing knife, and that is being used as a throwing knife by a complete moron. My dick.
You never see it come back. You see that my mind is too fast for right. You're done.
So for chopping, you're going to find the knife handle has no natural way of retaining your hand, so it's gradually going to slip out, causing you to need to readjust from time to time. This is dumb shit to do with a knife anyway, but it's the review. So 1055 steel. The point of cost saving. It's a mid-carbon steel at best, probably better suited to something like a hatchet head or similar, something that's largely focused on toughness and being cheap and easy to produce. So naturally it does not hold an edge. So this is something that's going to be, after a couple of instances of hard use, let alone what I've been doing to it, it's got a working edge. Like, it's still a sharp piece of steel, but yeah, you can run your fingers along that after being, a few journeys into the sand, of course, is not going to do even far better steels any good. But yeah, the 1055 steel is the cost saving point, but I would argue on this blade here, which really is just, if you're after the cheapest knife-like object, then it's totally fine. 50 Australian dollars, that's not much for a brand named knife up here, and I don't even know how much these are in the States. I'm going to guess like 20 bucks or something like that. And Cold Steel have been pretty intelligent with the geometry. You are always going to have something sharp on a blade with this profile. So this edge here, this tip here, even this sharp back blade there, you're always going to be able to do some material separation with your GI Tanto, even if your edge isn't completely up to snuff. That being said, getting it back to sharp is going to take only a few passes, even from dull, on a semi-decent stone. So I'll illustrate that to you now. So this is next to your pretty basic Mora companion. It's not the world's thickest knife, but it's still a fair bit thicker than the Mora companion. This is next to the Condor Pterosaur. a kind of leveled up version of a Mora type knife with the full tang, kind of like a Garberg competitor. This is it next to another pretty good budget kind of cast style knife, the Ontario Spec Plus Alpha survival knife. Kind of a clip point, hidden tang style affair. About $50 as well. Probably about $60 now actually. I think they've gone up just a tad. This is the closest size comparison I have. This is the TRC Apocalypse. It is worth actually 10 times more than the GI Tanto. It's a much thicker blade, and it's made of LMAX stainless steel, and it's made to like a very high standard, high caliber, ground very nicely, a lot more refined, but yeah, big old 6 to 7 inch knife blades, you know. And this is me K-Bar Becker BK9 with a naked steel. My Carter handle was my little sort of modified, made over version of it. Kind of similar thicknesses if I remember correctly, yeah. Maybe a little bit thicker again than the GI Tanto. So when you're looking at other super budget knives, for example, this Ontario Spec Plus Alpha Series survival knife, $10.75, so a little bit more carbon in the steel. About the same amount of stuff, really. It's a thicker blade with I guess a shorter length, maybe a little bit less material for the money. Kind of very similar pricing. These are actually going to be a tiny little bit more expensive. But you get these, and this is generally universal for low-cost knives, you get these really crappy nylon-ish sheaths. Now, Securex isn't perfect. It does dull the knife. But for this purpose especially, getting a Securex sheath, which is like a form-fitted, snap retention, really nice and secure sheath, for your $50 GI Tanto, it's a really good deal if you ask me. Yeah, if this was like a $200 to $300, you know, higher end cold steel knife, I probably want to get something made myself or get a Kydex or a leather sheath, something similar, because the Securex does dull the edge. I've tested that a bit and it does certainly seem to be the case. Over time, over 100 pulls, it'll noticeably dull the edge. But for the GI Tanto, for it to even come with something that's, even one grade, let alone multiple grades better than something like this, is a real win. Alright, so I've gone and got a Falcon Even DC3, these tiny little stones that cost very little and you can get whenever you buy a Falcon Even knife basically. I'll use just the stone side of it to get this guy back sharp. As you see right now, cannot even get, I can get a tear started but not a cut started in this paper. So let's fix it with just the grey side. So basically just water stone sharpening, or wet stone sharpening.
Without grasping it, the real question to be asked, where have I'm a sharpshooter, I ghost masquerade, hiding both face and mind, afraid for you to draw. I'm a sharpshooter, what else should I be? Please don't take off my mask, revealing dawn.
All right. The pain of a Tanto is that you can't kind of sweepingly sharpen it. You have to go and sharpen the tip part on its own. But I'll do a quick deburr on my leg. And I got a feeling that the edge will be greatly improved even just after that. Not the best edge in the world, but you can definitely get a rudimentary glide going through paper. So much improved, just with a few passes of a stone. And that's the benefit of something like 1055 steel. Ultimate user serviceability, but then you're going to be repeating that sharpening quite a bit more than even something like 1095, which in this day and age ain't no star either. So let's move on to, I guess, discussion about the handle. So I haven't really covered the handle yet because it's so darn basic. It's it's a straight piece of GFN plastic with a couple of kind of scalloped out middle lines there, kind of like a fuller in the handle, if you will. And that does allow you to sort of lock your fingertip pads into that, hollowed out area and index the knife pretty well. Points where your hand shows, that's all right. Yeah, it's fine. It's not ultra comfortable when you're doing something like battening. The shock transference is real. This is like a customizer's dream, this knife, because it's so cheap. You could buy like 3 or 4 of them and just muck with them. The tang is so basic, you could fit anything with wood on it. You could cut off this top and bottom guard. You check out some modified GI Tantos. It's actually quite a cool little field of sort of amateur knife modification. It's a great place to start, that's for sure. So yeah, the handle is fine for my purposes of just having it like as a car knife, as just an odd knife that frankly I'll probably end up leaving outside for like a whole season one time, and I'll come back in the summer and it'll be all rusty and it'll be under a tree somewhere and I'll be like, oh. But you know what? That's exactly what it's for. It's $50. It's great fun. It's effective for what you pay and what you expect. It's a big, stabby, jabby, very robust Tanto blade made of a very malleable steel. So kind of a specific type of knife, I suppose. If you like your cheaper kind of junk disposable knives to be a little bit better than true junk, this is a great place to start. It's if you're like a young knife maker and you want to see like a rough platform for some knife modifications, great testing field. If you want to try throwing a knife, you can buy this. This is actually cheaper than a lot of throwing knives. The 1055 is going to be fine. You might want to take off the handle so it's a bit more balanced, and have a crack as well. Really use it for anything. It's about the best fun you can have for under $50. Actually, just wait a minute. Wait a minute. I just need to check something. Actually looks like it's the second most fun you can have for under $50 in Australia.
Put your faith in what you most believe in. 2 worlds, 1 family. Trust your heart, let faith decide to guide these lives we see.